Hi, Friday. If you're new here, I'm Camille with 30 Day Singer. This is week 1 of 2 weeks on vibrato, so I hope you'll join me for next week as well. Just a quick overview of what you can expect we'll cover. We're going to talk about what vibrato is and what it isn't, because that's very important. We'll talk about the 4 foundations of healthy vibrato. So these are things that should be in place with your vocal technique really before you start worrying about vibrato. Um, and we'll learn some exercises to help kickstart your vibrato if you haven't heard any vibrato creeping into your singing. And we'll see how far we get. First, what vibrato sounds like. Vibrato is this fluctuation in pitch. So I'm going to sing with vibrato. Ah, you can hear the pitches going up and down very, very rapidly, versus something we'd call straight tone, where there's no variation or fluctuation in pitch. Ah. So again, just comparing the two, vibrato. Ah. No vibrato. Ah. And again, we call that absence of vibrato straight tone, because we're just straight, no fluctuation in pitch. What vibrato is a natural relaxation mechanism of your voice. So you can think about it this way: when you're working hard, let's say you're lifting weights or you're doing push ups, when your muscles are tired and looking to protect themselves, sometimes they'll shake or shiver a little bit. That's a similar idea to what's going on. Hi, Sheila. Hi, Smiley. Good to have you here. Um, Oh, by the way, if you're new, the last 15 minutes of this hour will be dedicated just to Q&A, but you're welcome to ask questions in the chat as we go along. Doing great, Mark. I hope you're well as well. Um, okay, so vibrato is naturally occurring. And I think some beginning singers struggle with that concept because it still does need to be encouraged. And as I said, there do need to be these elements of vocal technique in place for your vibrato to naturally occur. Um, what's happening within your larynx? So your larynx, that little bump in the middle of your throat, your Adam's apple, um, you your larynx houses your vocal folds. Your larynx is made up of cartilage and tendons and muscles. And so, in response to this air pressure underneath the vocal folds and the vocal effort of creating sound, these muscles will start to pulse rhythmically, creating that fluctuation of pitch up and down. Vibrato is not, however, you manually fluctuating the pitch, going ah or ah. Okay, if that was what vibrato is, it would be a lot easier to teach. And Smiley's asking, does vibrato come naturally? Yes, it does. It does. It's a naturally occurring event. So, this I want to say before we go any further: most beginning singers, and I'll say for me personally, I've worked with hundreds of beginning singers, and every single one has vibrato. But I do have a lot of people come to a first lesson and think that they don't. So they'll say, "No, no, no, I'm not singing with vibrato." Either because their vibrato is more subtle than that of singers they listen to, or because they just can't turn it off and on when they want to. And I just want to encourage you and say, you probably already have some vibrato happening. Um, and the fact that you can't turn it off and on or use it, purposefully, um, does not mean that you don't have vibrato. It just means needs to be developed a little bit. So, Smiley, the function of your vibrato, it's going to be the same in chest voice, and in head voice, ah. It feels, at least for me, it feels very, very similar. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about how to kind of kickstart our vibrato. So, a few exercises I want you to try first is this rapid. So we're going to sing on any vowel. I'm going to say ooh, but you could sing on a more open vowel like oh, oh, or ooh. The reason for this is, again, because vibrato is your voice's natural protective mechanism or relaxation mechanism. Sometimes we can trigger that vibrato to release by working our voice. So vibrating, stretching out quickly, and then giving it a chance to relax. So that's exactly what we're doing here. When we sing higher pitches, our vocal folds stretch longer. When we sing lower pitches, our vocal folds relax back. They're shorter and thicker. So I don't want you to worry too much about perfect pitch accuracy right here. I just want you moving your voice quickly and then relaxing at the end. So again, we're going here as fast as you can. Ooh, and then relax at the end. My vibrato naturally comes in there at the end. It's okay if yours doesn't. Don't worry. We're going to do a million different exercises to kickstart that vibrato, but give that a try. These pitches are C to G, and we're toggling back and forth. If you're a lower voice, you would be here. That's still C to G, just in a different octave. So again, give it a try. Ooh. Try a different vowel. So it doesn't have to be ooh, it could be E, O, ah. Experiment a little bit. Also try it at a different point in your range. So Smiley was asking about head voice. Ooh, or being a little bit more solidly in chest voice. Oh. For different singers, you might find it easier in head voice or easier in chest voice. You might find that there's a specific range of pitches in which your vibrato is coming out kind of more naturally. You might find there are specific vowels that help your vibrato to come out naturally. So, my encouragement to you, especially in the beginning, is to not worry about accessing vibrato through your entire range. Just see if you can access it somewhere and you can build from there. Your vibrato's most likely to occur in the range of your voice that feels most comfortable and most relaxed. So, as I'm giving you these exercises today won't be so much walking across the keyboard like we normally do. I'm just kind of giving you the pattern and the principle, and you can try it out at whatever spot in your range feels comfortable. Again, vibrato, natural relaxation mechanism. And if we are tense and tightening, we might be preventing that vibrato from ringing. Okay, second exercise to see if we can trigger that vibrato to release is a descending waterfall. So we'll do something like this on a wee, 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 wee. Again, we're working the voice. We're gradually relaxing the vocal folds as we go from high to low. Wee, 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 wee. And then again, on the end there, we're just relaxing and we're seeing, does any vibrato appear? Your vibrato might not appear right away. Maybe it's going to appear at the very end. Wee, 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 wee. Okay, so just listen for it. If you hear fluctuation in pitch, that could be your vibrato making itself known. Low voices, you could be here. But again, take this pattern anywhere that's comfortable for you. And Mark, I saw you had a question. I find I only really notice vibrato when I'm in mixed voice. I don't really get it in chest. So am I perhaps doing something wrong? So, Mark, I would suggest that whatever sound quality you're using when you're in your mix range, whatever vowels you're using, consider taking those down into your chest voice. And instead of thinking of it as like dropping into chest voice or getting louder or heavier, try to keep that kind of mix lightness. and take that down. Because it's possible that maybe in chest voice there's just too much weight. I don't know. Again, I'm guessing without hearing what's happening. Um, but that would be my guess, and that's kind of my approach is wherever you're noticing vibrato naturally appear, see if you can take that same quality, same vowel, same intensity into other parts of your range. So other example would be if you're a more classical or choral singer and vibrato is easier for you in head voice, then I would start in head voice. Ooh, and I drop down into chest voice, but I try to not change much. Ooh, keeping the vowel, keeping the volume. Yeah. Okay. So give this a try. This is kind of a descending waterfall. Again, I like wee, but you could sing really on anything. And again, we're going wee, 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 wee. And seeing, do we hear any vibrato there at the end? Okay, good. Glad to hear that, Mark. All right, moving on. So I mentioned before there are 4 elements of technique that if these aren't in place, this could be what's preventing your vibrato from ringing or releasing. The first is body engagement, sometimes called breath support. We'll talk about that more. The second is cord closure, sometimes called cord compression. Um, Although it's more complicated, you can think of this just as the amount of volume or the level of breathiness that you're singing with. Okay. The third aspect of your technique that should be in place is some amount of resonant space, and we'll talk more about what that is. But very quickly, that's just space within your mouth and your throat. So if your mouth is very very closed when you're singing, chances are it's going to be harder for that vibrato to ring naturally. And then the fourth element is relaxation. So rewind with me, go back to the very first one, body engagement or breath support. If I am not connected to my breathing muscles, and when I say breathing muscles, I mean your low abdomen, your intercostals or the muscles between your ribs. If I have no connection to these muscles when I'm making sound, my vibrato is not naturally going to ring. However, if I do have a connection, way, way easier. So, how do we develop this? It's really, really quite simple. I know breath support is something that a lot of people talk about and make really confusing, but do this with me. It'll be simple. I want you to place a hand on your low belly, that's just below your belly button, and one hand on your rib cage or your sides. You could even have a crab claw and have it wrap around to your back. And I want you to feel expansion when you inhale. So you should feel space being created and then feel contraction when you exhale. This is just natural breathing. Okay. This time I want you to exhale on a strong hiss, really strong hiss. Don't give me like a weak. No, I want really, really strong. And you're going to feel something happening in your belly here, in your trunk. You're going to feel something happen. So inhale and then exhale on a strong hiss. Okay. Some people feel a little crunch inward. Some people feel a flex outward. Some people feel, okay, I expanded when I inhaled and then I just kind of stayed expanded as I was hissing. Whatever you felt there, let's see if we can take that same feeling onto making sound. So we're going to go from a hiss to a hum. If you're like, what should I be thinking about or what should my goal be? Typically, the goal is to maintain some of that expansion So we inhale, we're expanded. And then typically the goal as we're singing, as we're making noise, is to maintain that expansion. So we're not just collapsing back. Um, So give that a try for me. Whatever makes sense to your brain. So, what I think, what makes sense and clicks for me is I'm pushing out when I sing. Another way that voice teachers will describe this is singing on the feeling of the inhale. So, you inhale, that feels like expansion. And then when you sing, ah, you kind of pretend that you're still inhaling rather than I'm using my air and I'm compressing and deflating. So there's many different ways to talk about this, but for me, the easiest is just feeling that natural engagement that happens when you hiss and then carrying it over to sound making. So we're going to exhale on a hiss. Any pitch does not have to be the pitch I just sang, but inhale, feel that expansion. Exhale on a hiss, and on that very same breath, close to a hum, but keep that feeling in your belly. We don't want your belly to just go all soft when you start to hum. We want to feel that same kind of gentle engagement, pushing out, flexing, however you want to think about it. Okay, inhale, exhale, hiss. It doesn't have to last forever. When you feel like you're out of air, just stop. You're good. Okay, so that's an introduction to that feeling. Another favorite exercise is to go from a pulsing hiss to a he or ho like Santa Claus with your belly moving every single pulse. So when you're hissing, let me just bring the laptop down so you can see the belly. Okay, so when I'm hissing, s s s see that little flex out? And when I'm singing, ho, 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 each time. Okay? Every single time. Um, any pitch, we're going to go s, 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 he, he, and that's it. Hiss 4 times, he or ho 4 times, and pretend you're Santa Claus, with that bowl full of jelly tummy happening. Here you go. Choose your pitch. Hiss and then he. S, 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 s. He, he, s, 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 s. Ho, 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 ho. Nice. What we're doing here is we're pairing this engagement of our abdominal muscles, our trunk, with making sound. For some people, that feels natural. For some people, it does not feel natural. And usually, what I'll ask a singer is when you're singing, do you feel your body helping you? Or does it just feel like you're singing from your neck up? And if a singer says, yeah, I just feel like I'm singing from my neck up, then we do exercises like this. Um, and some people are like, no, it feels like my body's helping me, but it's a very vague feeling. Then things like this can give us some focus. So here are the things that I think about when I'm singing for a good breath support all the way to the end of the phrase. I'm thinking about pushing out, or I'm thinking about keeping the rib cage expanded. I'm thinking about keeping good, tall, beautiful posture. And when I get to the very end of the phrase, I think about letting my low belly gently draw in. Um, that might not be your exact strategy, but just start thinking about what you naturally feel when you're exhaling on a hiss, and see if you can carry that same mentality, same feeling into your singing. Every body is different, every singer is different, but those are the ideas that have helped me the most. Um, okay, so next step in getting this feeling of support or body engagement is to start sustaining a little bit. So a s, 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 he, he. Again, any pitch that's comfy, we're going hiss, 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 and then he, or ho, ho, ho. Okay? Does not matter what you sing on. We're just trying to get that pulse. Here we go. So it's hiss, 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 and then sing, sing, sing. Choose your pitch, doesn't matter what. S, 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 ho, ho, ho. Try it again. Try it at a different spot in your range if that didn't work well for you. So maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower. Try it once more. S, 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 ho, ho, ho. Good. I like that exercise. It seems to work pretty well with singers who aren't that connected to their body. And then once they get a little bit more connected, their vibrato starts to ring a little more freely. All right, that was element number 1. Element number 2, if you remember, is chord closure or chord compression. We're talking about the strength and the duration of your vocal folds coming together to vibrate when you sing. Just to simplify, if I sing with a very breathy, weak, airy tone, ah, it's almost impossible for my vibrato to ring naturally. I can force it to, ah, but it certainly doesn't come naturally. So for a beginning singer who's just finding vibrato, stronger sounds are going to yield better results. So 2 exercises to feel what that's like to sing with a stronger sound, little bit more chord compression or chord closure. The first would be using a little bit of speech. So say the word apple, apple. Notice how you started that word? Ah, ah. We call that a glottal onset. Your vocal folds are actually together before you make sound. So if I say, whoa, whoa, notice I didn't have that sound at the beginning. Whoa. That whoa is what we'd call a balanced onset. My vocal folds start vibrating, air is flowing, I'm making sound, and it's all happening pretty much simultaneously. Whereas if I say apple or uh-oh, uh-oh, my vocal folds are coming together, and then I let that air flow. Well, another way to put it would be my vocal folds are coming together and stopping my air from flowing. Uh, uh, and then I make sound. Um, okay, so using this apple or uh-oh sound, we're just bringing the folds together. So if you're a singer who normally is breathy and quiet, ah, what you might be used to is airflow and then vocal folds coming together. Ah. And if you don't start a pitch strongly, it's kind of hard to increase strength as you go. It's possible, but it's harder. So, easier just to start strong and then stay strong. So, one more note before we do a little exercise together, and it's going to be ah, ah, ah. It's okay if it sounds bratty or annoying to you. All good. Um, Note before we do that together, it does not have to be very, very harsh or intense. So you do not need to go ah ah ah. Oh, that's gonna hurt you. It hurts my ears. So you don't need to take it that far. Just your spoken voice. Apple ah ah ah. That's plenty strong, plenty loud. Okay. Um, Really, we care about are those vocal folds coming together, not so much how loud are you. Eh, Anyways, all right, give this a try, just a few, and then you can take it to any spot in your range that you want. Ah, ah, ah. Ready? Ah, ah, ah. Ah, ah, ah. If it makes makes more sense to you to go, like you're about to say, oh, then do that. Here you go. Uh, uh, uh. Uh, uh, Cool. Okay. So take that to any point in your range that you want. Again, we're looking for the spots in your range that feel most comfortable and most relaxed today, because that's where vibrato is more likely to show up. Second exercise, especially if you're a very breathy, light singer, second exercise to get those vocal folds together without really having to think about it is to use bratty or whiny sounds. So something like a why, or nay, 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 nay. They're not pretty sounds, but did you notice how they were not breathy at all? Nay, 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 as opposed to ooh. There's a reason we're not using that kind of sound for a chord closure exercise. So bratty, why or nay. Again, your pattern is this major arpeggio, nay, 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 or why. And it does not work as well if you don't use the bratty sound. If you're just saying nay, 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 nay. There's nothing magical about saying nay. You've got to nay, really lean into that brattiness. I know, as ugly as it is, see if it works for you though. It can be a real game changer, especially if you have a hard time getting chord closure. If you are just trying to sing louder and it's not working, exercises like this are just they're tools. They're tools in your tool belt. So give that a try. Annoying as all get out, but try it at different spots in your range. And again, most of these exercises, we're stopping at the end and letting our voice relax. So nay, 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 and seeing if our vibrato comes a little bit more easily. Okay, third element. So we covered body engagement / breath support, chord closure / chord compression, and now we're on to resonant space. So let's talk about that. Mark asked, does the glottal stop in that exercise have a purpose, or can you just make the sounds continuously? Out of curiosity for quieter singing for me. Okay, so Mark, the is just bringing the vocal folds together kind of manually. So if you just sang that'll work too. The is just a repetition of bringing the folds together, so you can get used to that action. But if that doesn't feel right for you, you can drop the repetition. That's totally fine. Okay, resonant space. If I demonstrated earlier, if your mouth is relatively closed, that vibrato is probably not going to come very easily. So I'm going to suggest a nice, tall, open no or yeah. And I've done this so many times with singers, and I'll show them how much space I want, at least. Ah, yeah, or no. And they give me something like this: no, or yeah. And again, every singer is different, every body is different. But if you're not relaxing your jaw down and back, if you have no space internally, it just will not work as well. So if you're like, I wonder, am I opening my mouth enough? Take a look in the mirror and you tell me, does it look like there's, a pinky space in between your teeth? Or does it look like maybe two fingers? Okay, we don't need to go crazy. You don't need to unhinge your jaw, past the point of like comfort or like past that point where your jaw clicks. You don't need to do that. Do not hurt yourself, but don't be shy. Let the jaw drop and go into the bathroom, look in the mirror, because I'm telling you, most people, like 99% of singers, when I ask them to let their jaw drop down and back, and I show them how much space I want, they usually are giving me like a third of that space, maybe half of that space. And then I ask them, can you overdo it with me? Can you exaggerate? Give me what I'm giving you. Okay, so resonant space inside the mouth and throat is about more than just dropping the jaw, though. Notice what happens if I drop my jaw, but I still don't have a lot of space internally. So I'm singing, that didn't help my sound and it didn't help my vibrato ring. So, what do I need to do differently? I need to create space inside the mouth. Okay, so hopefully you can see the difference between see how high the back of my tongue is back there? You can't see the uvula. Now you can. You can see to the back. You can see the back of the roof of my mouth or my soft palate, my uvula, that little dangly thing. You can see, basically the top of my throat. That's the space inside the mouth that I'm talking about. So, how to create that space? The easiest way to do that is to inhale, kind of like you're at the beginning of a yawn, although that's too much for some people, and then it just causes them to actually yawn. Um, but another way to create that space is to kind of slow down, excuse me, hiccup, slow down a gasp. So first, gasp for me like you're surprised. Okay? Now slow down that gasp. Okay? I hope you're doing this with me. I'm not doing this alone. And can you feel the space that's created inside your mouth and throat? It should feel different than just mouth being closed and everything collapsed. You should feel space internally. See if you can feel that. Okay? Feels like the back of the mouth and the throat are kind of opening a little. You can feel the air rushing through a little bit more. Okay, so once you've created that space, I want you to sing without collapsing all that space. So let's say our pattern is no, 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 something like that. And again, we're trying it at different spots in our range to see what's comfortable. But I'm creating space, no, and then I'm singing with that space. I'm not going space and then collapse. No, no, no. The reason I'm saying to create that space on your inhale is you have to inhale anyways, and might as well not waste that inhale not creating space. If you don't create space on your inhale, no, then either you get a sound like that or you have to create it in a split second between your inhale and your singing. No, and it just creates more work for you. So, better to inhale, space, and then sing with that space. Okay, so give that a try. Try it at a different spot in your range. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Again, give your voice a chance to relax at the end. Um, all right. So we're not just dropping the jaw, we're also creating internal space inside the mouth and the throat. And I saw there was a question. Okay, cool. Last element is relaxation, and I know this one is difficult. Um, Nick was asking about tongue placement or relaxation. So, Nick, it depends on the point of that specific exercise. Sometimes, if the point is to, let's say, uh, release the tongue or relax the jaw, sometimes we do want articulation with the tongue. I would say, in general, when you do this exercise that we just described, you're gonna feel the back of your tongue drop a little bit when you inhale, and then when you're singing, "No, no, no," in order to make that "n" sound, and a lot of consonants require our tongue to move, so it is gonna move. Um, my thought and my advice is usually with the tongue that it should feel soft and flexible and free to move. You don't necessarily need to worry about it staying in one specific spot. And oftentimes, if we get overly concerned with that, that just causes more problems. When we're like, "Oh, my tongue has to be in this spot and it can't move," then we tend to get a bit tense. So rather I think about yeah, I just think about the tongue being soft, flexible, free to move. In general, most voice teachers would say, the tip of the tongue should be, gently resting behind the bottom teeth. Um, the one thing that we sometimes look out for is retraction of the tongue or pulling the tongue back. So if that's something that you tend to do, if you're singing, "Ah," and you're pulling the tongue back in your mouth, or, "Oh," okay, uh, different sounds, but both my tongue is pulling back. One, it was kind of pulling up and back, the other, it was kind of pulling down and back. So if it feels like the sound is kind of getting caught in your throat, or if you can physically see that your tongue is retracting when you sing, then I would consider doing an exercise with the tongue out of the mouth. Uh, or yeah, 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 or a tongue out hum. Mm, um, anything like that, just to remove the tongue from the equation a little bit. But, anyways, okay, my friends, relaxation. Um, if I'm super tense when I'm singing, wise men say, I'm probably preventing my vibrato from ringing. So what I recommend for this, like, you can really do any exercise that feels relaxing for you. Um, but what I recommend that's probably even better is singing a song that feels easy for you. Um, are there any just like feel good songs that don't feel like a stretch for your range? Like it feels like it's in a comfy range. You don't have to worry about the notes or the melody. Sing that song, maybe sing it on a warm-up syllable, um, but take a very relaxed posture. So maybe you're seated instead of standing if being seated feels more relaxed to you. Or my personal favorite would be walking around the room. It's pretty hard to stay tense when you're physically moving. So an example would be walking around the room, swinging your arms back and forth, rolling your shoulders out, shaking your head no, really adding any kind of fluid, graceful movement, and you don't have to be a dancer to do this well. You just need to be moving and not getting stuck. Um, so that to me is probably the easiest way to relax when singing is sing a song that feels comfortable for you, that you know well, you don't have to worry about, and take a walk around the room either during your warm up or while singing that song. Um, and last thing on that, before we move on and do a few silly exercises with our last remaining 5 minutes. Um, If you can choose a song that has an emotional connection for you, that's even better. I I was working with a student, it was either this I think it was last week, and this student was using 0 vibrato, and then I asked this student to think about the lyrics and the story that he was telling instead of thinking about the notes and, you know, thinking about how he sounded. Immediately, his vibrato came out. And he was stylizing, he was falling from note to note, but what was amazing for me to hear is he went from total straight tone to vibrato just happening naturally. And the only thing we changed, we did nothing technical. I just asked him to tell me the story as he was singing and to let himself feel the emotion of the lyrics. And that was it. Um, so if you're doing these exercises and you're kind of getting in your head about your vibrato, um, that that can sometimes inhibit us, because what are we doing when we're in our head and we're concerned? We're probably not as relaxed or free. Um, so, anyways, just a thought. Okay, last few exercises to kind of kickstart that vibrato and crazy. We're nearing the end of our time together. So I've got about 5 minutes, a little bit less, before Q&A. So if you have questions and you're here live, throw them in the chat and we'll get to as many as possible. But my favorite exercises to help kickstart your vibrato, get you used to that pitch fluctuation. First is the ghost wail. So you're moving your voice both side to side and up and down, something like ooh. Okay. Silly, silly sound. But then the idea is you get your voice shaken back and forth and then you stop on a single pitch. Ooh. And is that my 100% natural vibrato? No, it's a little bit faster. It feels a little bit forced. However, functionally, that's the same thing I'm doing when I release my vibrato. I'm not going I'm not manipulating the pitch. I'm not shaking my jaw. I'm not trying to pulse my belly. I'm not doing anything physically. It still feels very much like a natural vibrato, just a little bit forced, and the speed is a little bit fast. So give that a try. That's the spooky ghost wail. Again, you're moving up and down. Ooh. And then you're stopping on a single pitch and seeing, can I keep that shaking side to side thing going? Taking that and then seeing if you can relax or back off of the intensity, maybe get a little bit quieter. So ghost whale, ooh, and then I kind of just backed off of the intensity. I wasn't as spooky of a ghost. I got a little bit quieter, and that started to sound more natural. Oh, sorry. Okay. Second silly sound is the about to cry voice. So imagine you're getting emotional about something and you know how your voice starts to shake and it's kind of you know, can feel embarrassing that your voice is shaking when you're about to cry. Same idea there, using that kind of silly sound where our voice naturally shakes. Okay. So maybe you're saying, no, oh no. Can you keep that shake going? No. Again, I hope some of you are doing this at home. I have no way of knowing, but I hope I'm not doing this alone. And Parati is saying it's fun, though. I'm glad. I'm so glad. It should be fun, right? These are silly sounds. They're not serious sounds. Okay, so the about to cry voice, you're shaking. And then same idea with the ghost whale. Can you back off the intensity so that it sounds a little bit less forced? Feels a little bit more relaxed. Um, last, I think last thing I want to leave you with before some Q&A, and I don't see questions, so people here live, put those questions in the chat. Um, last little tip comes from another 30-day singer instructor, Abram. He taught me this. And he likes with his students to use a diphthong to help kickstart vibrato. So a diphthong is a double vowel sound. Think about the word night. Really, it's two sounds. It's ah plus e, night. And the idea there um, is that you're letting that vibrato ring on the end. Night, night. You can kind of think, for me, it helps to think about like Snow White or other kind of Disney princes and princesses. Their sort of fluttery, fast vibrato sound. I'm wishing. Okay, that kind of vibe. That can be helpful. So try it out. I've used that with students and it's worked really well as well. Um, I don't know how many exercises we went over today, but there were a lot. And if not everyone worked for you, that's fine. That is a-okay. I'm going to take a drink of water. I think Nick is saying he's trying to keep his pitch correct, but keep laughing half the time. Then if you're laughing, you're doing it right. And yeah, with the whole pitch, like we're also being very, very free with that. So no pitches necessary or no specific pitches necessary. Mark is asking, are there any songs that you think would be good to practice that you think would bring out your vibrato? Yes. So I would say no songs specifically, but genres of songs. So one would be obviously opera. The reason for that is you have a lot of these pure open vowels, oh, okay, this isn't opera, but I was about to sing Ave Maria. Ave Maria. You just have like vowels, vowels, vowels all over the place. You have long sustains. And the other benefit of choosing something classical, I should have said, or operatic, is that the tonal models that you're going to be listening to, so any singer you're listening to who sings those songs is using vibrato all over the place. It's more difficult to sing a pop song where the singer's not using vibrato all the time. They're probably using it at the ends of phrases or, just as a stylistic effect. It can be harder than for a new singer to then say, "Okay, I want vibrato, but I want it specifically here." Remember, that's more of a high level skill. Um, so I would say, okay, that's one genre is classical or operatic art songs. And then the other genre would be golden age era musicals. So think Guys and Dolls, Oklahoma, older musicals from like the 50s where there's quite a lot of still I don't wanna say classical influence, but sort of like classical singing influence at least. Um, and there's a lot of vibrato in those songs. I'll know when my love comes along. You're not gonna hear, I'll know when my love comes along. You're not gonna hear those songs lacking vibrato. So again, the utility in that is the way the songs are written, but also um, the singers who sing them. And you're listening to them, you're imitating them, can be helpful. Parati, why is bratty nay so difficult? I feel comfortable with head voice and chest voice, but preparing for middle is murder on my throat. Um, Oh, I'm sorry for that. So, if that sound does not work for you, you don't need to use it. Um, some another sound maybe to try with that middle or mix range would be something a little bit more balanced. So that nay or y maybe is just too much. So I would try something like one, 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 potentially. Um, or another thing you can do, Parati, is, add a consonant. So the whole point of those bratty exercises was just to get our vocal folds together. So what you could do instead would be ba 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 or go 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 go. Something that is helping to hold back that air, making it easier for the vocal folds to come together a little bit more strongly. It doesn't have to be the bratty sound. And Pitch Casualty is asking, could that be a placement issue? Yeah, so it if it's overly nasal, if you're nay 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 nay, and things are just really tight. If it's feeling really tight, and when you said it's murder on your throat, I'm thinking Pitch Casualty. That's a good thing that you brought up. I would say bratty or whiny, but not necessarily nasal. So, why, instead of nay, 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 nay. Because, yeah, that feels awful on my throat too if I go really, really nasal. Um, so that's also something to try is think bratty, bright, but not necessarily nasal. Um, And Mark was saying no opera, but Disney songs, yes. So, golden age era musicals and or like older Disney, like some of the first Disney tunes, um, Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, um, a dream is a wish your heart makes. You're gonna hear a lot of vibrato in those songs. Um, yeah, so anything old. Disney in general, so, like, the Disney that I grew up with, I'm thinking Aladdin, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast. I would say that even is still influenced by musical theater enough that you're gonna get a good amount of vibrato. Current Disney or Disney Pixar, you're not going to hear quite as much of that, like, classic musical theater influence. It's certainly still there, but, like, I wouldn't have you listen to Tangled for an example of frequent vibrato usage, if that makes sense. And Mark, I know I usually cite jazz as less, um a style that uses less frequent vibrato, but that's not necessarily, um, true for all singers. The difference really is jazz uses vibrato not so much all the time, like an operatic singer would or even a musical theater singer would. They're using jazz sorry, using jazz. They're using vibrato as an effect. But you could also listen to some old school classic jazz singers. Um, it's not gonna be vibrato all the time, but that would be another genre to check out. Cool. Yeah, no, you're gonna hear vibrato in most Disney. I mean, I'm thinking, Moana, Coco, like you're gonna hear vibrato. Guess all I'm saying is you're gonna hear more. You're gonna hear more frequent vibrato in those, golden age musicals and classic Disney. It was just the style back then. Um, but yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't think of many styles contemporary, um, notwithstanding, that don't have any vibrato. That'd be interesting. Like no vibrato ever. I'm waiting for more questions. Okay. Yes. So, pitch casualty, we talked about what vibrato is and isn't. You can rewatch, or not rewatch, but you can watch the replay. Um, Next week will be about troubleshooting with vibrato, working with your natural vibrato, alternating vibrato and straight tone, where to place vibrato in songs. So next week's lesson will uh, sort of assume that you're using vibrato at times. Um, Music Genius is asking, how can I find my own technique? Your own tech. Well, this might sound like a non answer, but if you're talking about vocal technique, technique is just how you do things. So you probably already, I mean, you do have a technique, whether it's like an official technique or something that you're thinking about, like you do have a way to make sound and approach high notes and all of this stuff. So if that's what you're talking about, and if your question, if I'm understanding you correctly, is do you mean how can you find your own style, or how can you find a vocal technique that works for you? Because those are two different questions. Um, oh, good, Jack. I'm glad. Ah, okay, cool, cool. Nick is talking about Cyrano vocal technique. Okay, so I suppose the short answer to that question would be kind of shop around different voice teachers, let's say on YouTube because it's free, um, and see what feels like a good fit for you. So, some different, at least well known vocal techniques would be Estill or complete voice training, speech level singing, bel canto. Um, you know, I think Alexander technique, like, I think most voice teachers, or at least most voice teachers that I know, um, kind of take bits and pieces. They don't necessarily practice just one, established technique. Um, but that would be my answer to you, is kinda shop around and see, like, speech level singing exercises or a still, vocal exercises, and see what feels like a natural fit for your voice. Um, I think, the value in that would be clarity. Um, However, yeah, there might be more clarity and focus if you kind of settle on one vocal technique, methodology to follow. Uh, However, my opinion is that there is wisdom in many different techniques. Um, and we're constantly learning more about the voice. Um, so I take this with a grain of salt. But I would say it's good to be open-minded. It's good to not just listen to one teacher. I don't listen to just one teacher. I listen to many, and read a lot and watch a lot of people's stuff to see how they explain things. And so I would say, given that our knowledge of the voice and acoustics, voice science is still developing, I would say it's a good idea to learn, but stay open to change. That's that's that. Cool. All right. Well, my friends, as I said before, next week will be continuation of this. I hope whatever helped you today, you can take it into your practice. There is a short lesson. Let me grab it for you. So there's a short 10-minute lesson that I did on troubleshooting vibrato issues So, if you want like a quick recap um, of those 4 issues, the breath support, cord compression, resonant space, relaxation, check out that little 10-minute video because that's a nice, more condensed version. Um, and hopefully that will be useful for you in your practice this upcoming week. I will see you next week. Hope to see you there. It'll be a different day and different time, but I hope you can make it. All right. Thank you. See ya.